Hi everyone, my name is Umesh. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I prepared for CISSP exam and passed it in just 45 days without reading a single book. Now, if you're at the very beginning of your CISSP journey, this video is for you. I'll share my full study plan, the resources I used, my actual practice test scores, and I'll break down whether self-study or bootcamp is better option. But let me be clear upfront. If you're already halfway through your own study plan, then this video might not be the best fit for you. Stick with the approach you have committed to. What I'm about to share is a specific path that worked for me, and it's designed for those who are still deciding how to start. Here's what I'll cover. First, I'll talk about my study methodology and why I chose not to read a book. Next, I'll walk you through the resources I've used. Then I'll share my 45-day plan step by step. After that, we'll look at my practice test scores, the highs and the lows. And finally, I'll answer one of the biggest questions: is self-study enough, or do you really need a bootcamp? Along the way, I'll clear up a few myths, like the idea that you must consistently score above 80% in practice exams to have a shot at passing. I never hit that mark in practice and I still cleared the CISSP. So, if you are just starting out and want a practical, real world prep guide, stick around. This video is going to give you the clarity you need to map out your own CISSP journey. Now, let's talk about my overall study philosophy. One of the biggest misconceptions out there is that you must sit down and read every CISSP book cover to cover to pass. That works for some people, but let me be honest. I didn't read a single book. Why? Because I know my learning style. I retain information better through videos, practice questions, and repetitions. Reading thousands of pages would have been overwhelming, and honestly, I would have lost motivation halfway through. Here's the truth: the CISSP isn't about memorizing every detail, it's about understanding concepts, applying them to scenarios, and thinking like a security manager. That means you don't need to know every line of every domain, you need to know how to reason through the question. So instead of trying to cover everything, I focused on building a broad understanding of all 8 domains, reinforcing my knowledge with practice exam, and learning from mistake instead of chasing perfection. My approach was all about efficiency over volume. Do less, but do it better. Now, I'm not saying nobody should read books. If that's your style, go for it. But I want people to know it's completely possible to pass without them. What matters is that you choose the path that matches your learning style and then stick with it consistently. In the introduction, I mentioned that we will discuss whether self-study or bootcamp is important at the end, but I thought it is important that I clear the doubt right now. So now, let's talk about one of the most common questions I get about CISSP preparation. Should you go for a bootcamp or stick with self-study? The truth is, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. It depends entirely on your background, your current knowledge, and your learning style. Now, here's the framework that I used to decide. Step number 1: understand the domain. Now, before you make any decision, you need to get familiar with 8 CISSP domains. You don't need deep knowledge yet, just an overview of what each one covers. Step number 2: watch Pete Zerger's 8-hour CISSP Cram video. It gives you a solid understanding, high-level picture of what's ahead. Now, once you have done that, ask yourself 2 key questions. Question number 1: how many of these domains have you actually worked within your career? If you had hands-on experience in 3 or 4 of them, then that's a good sign. Question 2: while watching the Cram video, how much of it did you already know? If you found yourself already familiar with about 40% of the content, that's another good sign. So if you've answered good for both of these questions, you are in a strong position to go the self-study route. Why? because you already have enough baseline knowledge to build on, and with the right resources, self-study will be flexible, affordable, and effective. If you didn't score yourself well on both questions, then my suggestion is to consider a bootcamp. Bootcamps give you structure, discipline, and access to expert instructors who can fill the gaps in your knowledge. If you struggle with staying accountable on your own, the bootcamp can help you keep you on your track. At the end of the day, both paths work. The real difference is whether you need structured guidance or you're comfortable steering your own preparation. So here's my advice. If you're already strong in several domains and you can learn independently, self-study is absolutely a viable path. But if you're new to many of the domains or you learn better in a classroom style environment, a bootcamp will probably save you time and frustration. The important thing is to be honest with yourself about where you stand today. That's the best way to choose the right path for your CISSP journey. In this section, I'm going to walk you through the exact resources I used to clear my CISSP exam. Now, these aren't random recommendations. Each one of them played a specific role in my preparation, and I'll explain how I use them so that you can apply them effectively in your own study plan. One of the resources that really stood out to me was Pete Zerger's 8-hour CISSP Cram video. While I learned about this video halfway through my preparation, I want you to start here. Now, here's why this video is so useful. It gives you a complete overview of the CISSP exam. All the domains, all the major concepts, everything you need to be aware of. Most of the topics that will come up in your preparations are covered in this single video. You can use it in two ways. At the beginning of your preparation to understand the scope of the exam and get a roadmap of what to expect, or at the end of your preparation as a final check to see if you have covered everything. Now, don't get discouraged by the fact that it's an 8-hour long video. You don't have to sit through the whole thing in one go. Pete has actually broken it down chapter by chapter on YouTube, so you can easily jump to the domains you want to review. You can watch it in shorter sessions, 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever fits your schedule. The key is that by going through this video, you will see which topics you already know well and which ones you need to spend more time on this. For me, it was both a planning tool at the start and a confidence check at the end. Once you've gone through Pete's overview, the next step is to pick your main study materials. For me, I made a decision early on. I wasn't going to depend on books or audio-only resources. I learned visually, and a video content gave me the depth and clarity I need. There are a lot of options out there, but I narrowed it down to two main video series. Number one, Thor Peterson's Udemy videos and Mike Chapple's LinkedIn Learning series. Now, they both have very different teaching styles. Thor goes deep into explanations, really detailed walkthroughs of each domain. Mike, on the other hand, is much more direct and to the point. That contrast worked perfectly for me. Here's how I use them strategically. For the domains I already felt comfortable with, I went with Mike's video. They gave me a clean, quick reinforcement. On the other hand, for the domains where I knew I had gaps, I chose Thor's video. Those longer, detailed explanations helped me build confidence in areas that I wasn't strong in. Now, let me be clear. You're not going to finish a domain in a day, and you don't need to spend 2 weeks on one domain either. Some domains took me 2 to 3 days. Others that had a longer video series took me about 5 days to complete. Here's my study strategy looked like. First pass, I would watch the videos without taking notes about 2 hours a day. Then on the second pass, I would rewatch at 2 times the speed, this time with the notes. And here is something that helped me a lot. I would take the transcript of the videos, drop them into ChatGPT and get detailed notes generated. I'd keep those notes open side by side with the videos. If something needs more context, I will pause the video, update my notes, and then I'll continue. This approach allowed me to cover every domain thoroughly without drowning in books or trying to memorize. It was about efficiency and making the most of both instructors' strength. Another resource I'd like to highlight is Luke Ahmed's book, Think Like a Manager. Now, let me be upfront. The questions in this book are not real CISSP questions, but here's the important part. If you can understand Luke's style of questioning, the actual CISSP exam questions will feel a lot easier. His book really trains you to think from a managerial perspective, which is exactly what the exam is testing. It is less about memorizing technical details and more about asking, what's the right decision at a leadership level? That shift in mindset is what makes Luke's content more valuable. When I was preparing, Luke also had a video series available, and what I like about his approach is that he frames concepts as if you're thinking from a customer's perspective. It forces you to look beyond the technical answer and consider the bigger picture: risk, business impact, and management decision. So, if you enjoy that style of learning, I'd recommend exploring Luke's book and his videos. They won't give you real exam questions, I'm repeating that, but they will sharpen the exact mindset you need to succeed on CISSP. I will post the links of all the resources in the description. Another resource I found really helpful during my CISSP prep was Prebnaya's coffee shop videos. Now, these are short, focused sessions. Think of them as a quick caffeine boost for your study routine. What I like about them is that they break down complex topics into very digestible, bite-sized lessons. Instead of spending an hour trying to go deep into a single framework, you can watch one of these videos in just a few minutes and walk away with a clear understanding. I often use them in two ways. One, as a refresher before practice exams to quickly review tricky areas. Two, during the later phase of my preparation when I wanted to reinforce governance or compliance heavy topics without diving back into long lectures. The beauty of the coffee shot format is that it doesn't overwhelm you. You get clarity straight to the point and it sticks. Sometimes I'd even pair them with my notes. I'd watch a video, jot on the key idea, and then move on to the next one. So if you're someone who learns well in short bursts or just need a quick way to solidify key concepts, I highly recommend including coffee shots in your study toolkit. Now, before I wrap up this resource section, I want to say this. There are a lot of great authors and trainers out there, each with their own style and strength. I personally chose to focus on Thor, Mike, Pete, Luke, and Preb because their approaches clicked with me. But that doesn't mean these are the only people you should follow. Do your own research. You may find an author or a trainer whose style works better for you, and that's perfectly fine. The key is to pick resources that help you learn effectively, not just follow someone else's exact list. And if you've already found a resource or an instructor that's really helping you, I'd love for you to share it in the comment section so others can benefit too. This way, we can build a collective list of CISSP study resources that go beyond just my experience. All right, now let's talk about the study plan I would follow knowing everything I know today after finishing my CISSP. I'm pretty sure this is the juicy part everybody is waiting for. So here is my phase-by-phase breakdown, the foundation phase. Now for the first 5 days, I'd start with Pete Zerger's 8-hour Cram video. Why spread it across 5 days for just 8 hours? Because I don't want to burn myself out by trying to watch all 8 hours in a day or two and then risk losing momentum. Instead, I'd break it up into chunks, maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours a day. That way, I'd stay consistent. And if you finish it in 4 days, take the 5th day as a break. Use it to reset. Now, phase 2 is the domain deep dive. Now, once your phase one is done, and by this point, you already have a sense of which domains you are stronger in and which ones you need more attention. So I'd start by knocking out the ones that I'm already comfortable with. My rule was simple. If I knew about 60 to 70% of the topics in a domain, I'd go with my Chapple's videos because they're short, straight to the point, and I could finish them in 1 to 2 days. Now, for each domain, my cycle looked like this: 2 days of video watching and 1 day of practice test, then I'll move on. When I was preparing, I realized that about 4 of the 8 domains I've already worked with, so I'm pretty experienced in those domains. So I went with my Chapple's videos. The idea here is get the easier ones out of the way. This gives you momentum and clears space to focus on more challenging modules. Now for the harder ones. In my case, I found domain 1 and domain 3 to be the toughest. So I spent extra time there, around 5 to 6 days on each, and that's okay. My recommendation is this: for easier domain, again, spend 2 to 3 days. For tougher ones, give yourself 4 to 5 days, maximum 6. That way, you can get through all 8 domains in about 30 days. Now comes phase 3, practice focus. The last 10 days is purely to practice question. Now, this is the stage where you're not really learning new content anymore. You are training yourself to answer exam style question. The more you practice, the better you get at recognizing patterns and eliminating wrong answers. Finally, about 48 hours before my real exam, I took Mike Chapple's full-length CISSP practice exam. It costed around like $20, $25. I'll post the link in the description, but it was absolutely worth it. I scored well, and that gave me the confidence I needed going into my exam day. Honestly, the last practice test was one of the biggest confidence booster for my journey. Now, here's a recap. So you start with phase 1 where you go through Pete Zerger's 8-hour video. Then you decide on your video materials. I chose Mike Chapple's and Thor's. And for practice question, I used the official IC2's question bank. I also used Pocket Prep's practice question. Now that's an app that I downloaded and I paid for a subscription fees. Now there are other similar apps. So if you know of an app, please put it in the comment section. I also used Luke's Think Like a Manager. Now my study formula was very simple. Easy domains spent no more than 3 days. For harder domains, you can spend up to a maximum of 6 days. That includes the practice test. During your phase 3, I would also recommend watching a couple of other videos that could help you to train your mind to think and answer questions like a manager. Now, Andrew Ramdale and Gwen Betty, they have an amazing playlist which trains you on how to think like a manager and answer questions. I will paste their playlist link in the description. But remember, the CISSP isn't just about technical knowledge, it's about thinking like a security manager. Practice questions that test your decision-making mindset. Please do not memorize any of those questions. Let me quickly address something important. I took the CISSP exam in 2024, and since then there has been some updates in 2025. The good news is nothing major has changed. The exam still has the same 8 domain and the content areas are still the same. What did change was mostly the weightages and the format details. For an example, your domain security and risk management went up slightly from 15% to 16%. Software development security went down from 11% to 10%. And the exam itself is now a bit shorter in CAT format, 100 to 100 question with a 3-hour limit. So if you are starting your CISSP journey in 2025, don't worry. The core materials, the mindset, and the preparation strategy I have shared in this video still apply 100%. I want to share some of the biggest tips for success that really made a difference in my CISSP journey. Number one, don't chase perfection. You will hear people say you need to score 80% or higher on every practical test before you're ready. I never hit 80% on any full practice exam except the last one that I took from my Chapple. Before that, my best score was 74, and I still passed the CISSP exam. Focus on learning from your mistake instead of obsessing over a magic number. Tip number two, be consistent, not extreme. I studied about 2 hours a day. Some days I skipped. Some days I was frustrated, and that's normal. What matters is showing up regularly, not cramping 10 hours one day and then burning out. Tip 3, pick a solid resource and stick with it. Now, I use Thor Peterson's Mike Chapple, Pete Zerger, Luke Ahamed, and Preb Nair. Now, that was more than enough. Don't drown yourself in 10 different books, courses, and apps. 2 or 3 core resources plus practice exams is plenty. Tip 4, practice with purpose. Don't just take practice exams to collect scores. Review every question, especially the wrong ones. Ask yourself why the correct answer is correct, and that's where the real learning happens. 5. Think like a manager. CISSP isn't just about technical knowledge, it's about applying a security mindset at the leadership level. Books like Luke Ahmed's Think Like a Manager and videos that I have shared about how to think like a manager and answering questions with that mindset by Andrew Randall and Gwen Betty, they really help. And finally, stay accountable. For me, posting updates on LinkedIn was a way to keep myself motivated and accountable. You don't have to post publicly, but find a system, maybe a study buddy, a mentor, or just a tracker to keep yourself honest. At the end of the day, CISSP is less about memorizing thousands of pages and more about building the right mindset, staying consistent, and trusting the process. Before I end this video, so let me leave you with this. Now, there's a big misconception out there that only way to clear CISSP is to sit down and read every single book from cover to cover and spend like 6 to 12 months. I didn't do that. In fact, I didn't read a single book and I still passed it within 45 days. Now, I'm not saying books don't work. If that's your style, go for it. But what I want you to take away from this video is that there are different paths to success, and you need to choose the one that fits your learning style. For me, it was a mix of videos, practice questions, and a lot of learning from my mistakes. For you, it might look different, and that's completely okay. The CISSP is tough, but it's absolutely achievable with consistency and the right mindset. So don't get discouraged if your practice test scores aren't perfect. Don't feel like you're falling behind because you are not reading thousands of pages. What matters is building understanding, practicing with purpose, and sticking with the process. And I would love to hear from you. What study path are you taking? Are you going with self-study or a boot camp or a mixture of both? Drop it in the comments because your approach might help someone else's journey who are just starting out. Thank you for watching and good luck with your CISSP journey. Bye-bye.